The Battle of the Bulge, fought from December 16, 1944 to January 25, 1945, was the last major German offensive on the Western Front during World War II. It was a desperate attempt by Adolf Hitler to split the Allied forces, capture the vital Belgian port of Antwerp, and turn the tide of the war in Germany's favor. This battle, marked by its brutal winter conditions, surprise attacks, and fierce fighting, became one of the largest and bloodiest battles fought by American forces during the war. The resilience and determination of the Allied troops in the face of overwhelming odds ensured that the German counterattack would ultimately fail, sealing the fate of Nazi Germany. This is the story of the Battle of the Bulge, the prelude to the battle. By late 1944, the Allies had liberated much of Western Europe and were closing in on Germany from the west. The rapid advance following the success of the Normandy landings had stretched the Allied supply lines and left some units overextended. The Ardennes region of Belgium, characterized by dense forests and rough terrain, was considered a relatively quiet sector, defended by inexperienced and battle-weary American troops. Adolf Hitler, aware of Germany's deteriorating situation, devised a bold plan to launch a surprise counteroffensive through the Ardennes. His aim was to split the British and American forces, capture Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace on the Western Front, allowing Germany to focus its efforts against the Soviet Union in the east. The German High Command, despite concerns about the lack of resources and the audacity of the plan, prepared for the offensive, codenamed Operation Watch on the Rhine. The Germans amassed over 200,000 troops, 1,000 tanks, and substantial artillery for the offensive. They hoped to exploit the element of surprise, the overconfidence of the Allies, and the harsh winter weather to achieve their objectives. However, the success of the plan depended on rapid movement, surprise, and the ability to capture Allied fuel supplies, which were crucial for the German armored units. The surprise attack. On the morning of December 16, 1944, the Germans launched their surprise attack along an 80-mile front in the Ardennes. The attack began with a massive artillery barrage, followed by waves of infantry and tanks smashing through the thinly held American lines. The assault caught the Allies off guard, as the dense fog and snowstorms grounded Allied aircraft, preventing reconnaissance and air support. The German forces advanced rapidly, creating a bulge in the Allied lines, giving the battle its name. The town of Bastogne, held by the 101st Airborne Division, became a focal point of the German advance. Despite being surrounded and heavily outnumbered, the American paratroopers held their ground, repelling repeated German assaults. Their defense of Bastogne became one of the most iconic moments of the battle. As the German advance continued, confusion and chaos spread among the Allied forces. Units were cut off, communications were disrupted, and the harsh winter conditions exacerbated the difficulties of the battlefield. Despite these challenges, the American soldiers displayed remarkable resilience, forming ad hoc defensive positions and launching counterattacks to slow the German advance. The Siege of Bastogne. Bastogne, a strategic crossroads town in the Ardennes, became a critical objective for the German forces. The town's capture was essential for maintaining the momentum of the German advance. The 101st Airborne Division, along with elements of other American units, was surrounded in Bastogne by the advancing German forces. The situation in Bastogne was dire. The American defenders were outnumbered, outgunned, and suffering from shortages of food, ammunition, and medical supplies. The weather conditions were brutal, with freezing temperatures and heavy snow adding to the misery of the encircled troops. Despite these hardships, the American soldiers, led by Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, refused to surrender. On December 22nd, the Germans sent a delegation to Bastogne, demanding the surrender of the American forces. General McAuliffe's famous one-word reply, "Nuts," epitomized the determination and defiance of the American troops. The refusal to surrender and the continued resistance of the defenders bought valuable time for the Allies to organize a counteroffensive. The Allied Counterattack. As the German advance began to slow due to stiffening American resistance, fuel shortages, and logistical difficulties, the Allies prepared to launch a counteroffensive. General George S. Patton's Third Army, known for its speed and aggression, was ordered to pivot north and relieve the besieged forces in Bastogne. On December 26, 1944, Patton's forces broke through the German lines and reached Bastogne, lifting the siege and providing much-needed reinforcements and supplies to the defenders. This marked a turning point in the battle, as the German offensive began to lose momentum. In early January 1945, the weather improved, allowing the Allies to utilize their air superiority. Allied aircraft began bombing German positions, targeting supply lines and providing close air support to ground troops. The combination of air power, artillery barrages, and coordinated ground assaults began to push the Germans back, gradually reducing the size of the bulge in the Allied lines. The Germans, suffering from heavy casualties, lack of fuel, and the relentless pressure of the Allied counterattacks, were forced to retreat. By the end of January 1945, the Allies had regained the territory lost in the initial German assault, and the front lines were restored to their positions before the battle. The aftermath and impact. The Battle of the Bulge was the largest and bloodiest battle fought by American forces during World War II. The Americans suffered over 80,000 casualties, including more than 19,000 killed, making it one of the most costly battles of the war. German losses were also substantial, with estimates ranging from 70,000 to 100,000 casualties, as well as the loss of irreplaceable tanks, aircraft, and equipment. The battle was a decisive defeat for Nazi Germany. The failure of the Ardennes offensive exhausted Germany's remaining reserves of manpower and materiel, leaving the country vulnerable to the final Allied assaults from both the west and the east. The Battle of the Bulge also demonstrated the resilience and determination of the American forces, who had withstood the last major German offensive and emerged victorious. The battle's outcome hastened the end of the war in Europe. With the failure of the Ardennes offensive, the German military was left in disarray, unable to stop the advancing Allied forces. In the months following the battle, the Allies would push deep into Germany, culminating in the fall of Berlin and the unconditional surrender of Germany in May 1945. Conclusion. The Battle of the Bulge stands as a testament to the courage, determination, and resilience of the Allied forces, particularly the American soldiers who fought in the harshest of conditions. It was a battle that tested the resolve of the Allies and ultimately proved to be the final nail in the coffin for Nazi Germany. The victory in the Ardennes was not just a military triumph. It was a symbol of the unyielding spirit of those who fought to defend freedom and democracy. As we remember the Battle of the Bulge, we honor the sacrifices made by those who fought in one of the most critical and harrowing battles of World War. The legacy of their bravery endures, reminding us of the high price of victory and the enduring importance of standing firm in the face of adversity.